Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. It's morning. I'm just going on my morning walk. I'm up here at Port Stephens at Little Beach, and I'm just going to walk through the parkland here and pop out onto Shoal Bay Beach, which is a beautiful beach, and hopefully get to see a nice view. So what I want to do today is take you through a book summary entitled The Design of Everyday Things by an author named Donald Norman, who will talk to us about the challenges that designers, organisations face because we're being inundated by products which are becoming increasingly complex to use. They're feature rich, but because they're so complex, we can't really gain any of the benefits out of those features, because many of us, as you get older as well, can't figure out how to use them. So it's important to have simplicity in design, and that's why you've got people or organisations like IKEA that are becoming so successful, because they're able to at least design products which have a simplicity. Apple, for example, with their phones, have been successful once again because of their intuitivity in terms of how we use their product. And it's all very important to have products, g'day love, that are easy to use. So what the author goes on to say in a quote from the book is that cognition attempts to make sense of the world, emotion, and design's value. So we'll see where it leads us. Once again, this is one of those books that I would not normally include on Jim's 5am Club, but it had some points there that were able to resonate with me, because I do get frustrated sometimes with the electronics and the things around us, even though I do Jim's 5am Club and I'm pretty good at the old iPhone and using Facebook Live and all of that. There are other things in our lives which are always a bit of a challenge. So here we go. We've got the sun. It's midway in the sky. As I say, it's winter up here and it's just absolutely glorious. Where else in the world can you go during winter and for it to be so inviting? It's so inviting that I'll even come down here for a swim later on. There's a little bit of a breeze, which makes it a bit annoying. But here we go. We've got some people swimming down there. There's a father in the water up to his ankles, and he's got his daughter or son in the water swimming. So as you can see, it's a magnificent beach here, Shoal Bay. And it's a glorious day. So what more can we glean from this book? So the author here says that how we make and design products is important, especially at this day and age, because we need to make it intuitive. We need to make those designs intuitive for people so that people can use them and gain value out of those products, rather than, as I said before, the product being feature-rich, jam-packed with features and benefits that nobody can access because of the complexity and the continual change of product design. So then the author makes us feel a little bit more comfortable with ourselves, because he goes on to say that if you have a hard time figuring out a product It's not your fault. If you have a hard time figuring out a product, the author's saying it's not your fault. You're not on your own, because there's lots of people in the same boat. It's not your problem. It's the problem of the designers, the design team, because they've built something, but they haven't been able to implement it, explain it, and make it usable in a user-friendly way. So bad design, according to the author, is what happens when creators neglect the relationship between the technology and the people who use it. They neglect the relationship. And it's fair to say, and I think we're all in the same boat, that technology is changing at such a rapid pace that it's becoming increasingly difficult for creators to make new products that are still easy to use. It sounds pretty counterintuitive, that little point that the author makes. You'd think that things would be, they'd be able to make things easier to use. But what you've got now, I guess, is you've got two different camps with mobile phones. You've got the ones who are stuck with Apple, and I, for one, am one of those. I just love my Apple products. Even though I wasn't a fan in the beginning, I worked for IBM for a number of years, so I wasn't an Apple fan from the very beginning. But once I started using it, once my children had their Apple phones and I started playing with their phones, then I got the appreciation for what they could do. And then you've got the other phones, the Samsungs, and I forget what they're called, but the non-Apple phones. So once you become used to, once you become comfortable in operating that technology and that phone, then it becomes increasingly harder to break away and to do something different. So the next point that the author makes, how beautiful is the lapping of the waves on the beach. I just find it so peaceful. I love being by the water. And as I said, I'll try and go for a swim later on today, because I do love my winter swims. Haven't been on one for a little while. I've been a bit slack, but I've had a bit of a cough, a niggling cough that's annoyed me for the past month or two. But once I'm over that, I'll go back to my the thing that I enjoy. So the next point that the author makes in this book is that buyers have an easier time using a product if it's got specific limitations built into it. There you go. So designers can build in specific limitations to make things easier to use. IKEA, for example, as we used that example before, but IKEA, according to the author here, has become the standard. They're really, really good because they introduce constraints which limits how we use a product. The bolts, the nuts fit in specific holes, so nothing much can go too wrong. Only if I'm assembling something, I'll have some extra bolts and nuts left over. So the last point that the author makes is, I'll just turn the camera around. The last point that the author makes is that to fully tap into the power of technology, designers need to centre their work on humans and to build things with the end in mind, to design things with the user in mind. Now, I understand that in organisations you've got the geeks, you've got the designers who just love coming up with new ideas and new things and new gadgets and new features. But they usually don't have the customer in mind when they're doing it. It's just an expression of their internal world, how they just want to get things done and do things just to prove a point, to show off to their peers. But the author here says the technology needs to have humans at the centre so that it's functional and so it's easier to use. Technology is changing and improving at an absolute crazy rate. And as we get artificial intelligence kicking into the equation, it's going to accelerate the products and technology that we've got available to us over the next decade or 10. But what happens is that technology is changing and improving at a rapid rate, but often with lags between designs. There is a bit of a lag which happens between designs, and it's called a transition gap. The technical name for it is a transition gap, because designers are so excited to design something new that they forget to consider how people will use it. So there's a gap between what's designed and how we're going to get people to use it and get the most out of it, is the point that the author is making. So in order to make designs human-centered, people-centered, the author gives us four guidelines to consider. So the first one is that we need to basically watch people use it and study in a control room and note all the problems. So it's basically using people in a control sense to get them to use it and see how they interact with that technology, that product. So before you launch a product, before you make it available to the marketplace, the author here is saying the people who design the better products are the ones who observe people using that product to see if they can do something a little bit better or make some changes that will enhance the experience, the customer experience. And once you've observed people using the product and worked with people, then the next thing is to fix the problems. Make it simpler to use, not more complex. Because people give up. I've worked in the IT industry for many, many years, and you learn that people will give it a crack. People will give things a decent sort of crack, but after a certain point, they just give up. So the author here is saying that you need to fix the problems and make it easier and not more complex. And the third point is to build a prototype that fixes the problem, and making sure, this is a good point, and making sure that the prototype fixes the problem, but without creating new problems. Here is the point. It's got to fix the problem, but at the same time not create new problems. So the last point that the author makes is that we need to take that product, the prototype that you fixed, and to test it again in a controlled environment. Take the prototype, test it again, see if the problems are fixed, and keep on testing with people, with real people, the people who will end up using, or the people that you're hoping will end up using your product, and make sure you keep on going through that cycle over and over again until the product is fixed. And the people who follow this sort of rationale, the people, the organisations who take their role seriously, are the ones who are going to have the best breakthroughs in the marketplace, according to what the author is saying. So there you go. Thank you very much for joining me this morning on Shoal Bay Beach. There's only a few people on the beach. There's a couple of people swimming, as I said, and I'll be coming down here and taking a dip just to acclimatise myself to the winter water temperature. It's probably down to about 17 at the moment. A bit nippy, but you get used to it after a few minutes. So let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable. And if you're designing things, try and keep it simple and test it. Test it with people. Make sure you test everything with people. If you're in the theatre, if you're a comedian, if you're an accountant, if you're offering advice, make sure you test your advice on people, be it your family, be it some of your clients, to make sure that you're able to pitch it in a way that makes sense and they can get it. Because once you hone it down, once you get it polished, and your message is clear, concise, and readily understood, then and only then you'll be in a position to reap the benefits of your work. So there you go. Let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, and I feel absolutely great. And I love it. I just love it. I just can't get enough of the lapping of the waves. It reminds me of Greece. One thing that I love, and I've always loved about Nelson Bay, is that it reminds me of Greece. The only thing missing are the throngs and throngs of people. But I don't mind keeping this beach to myself for the time being. Anyway, Yassas, take care, and thank you once again for joining me on this journey, a journey of discovery, where we become partners in each other's development, where we become wind beneath our wings, and we can hopefully live, learn, and pass it on. Yassas, take care. Que taleme. Bye for now. Bye. Ciao. Yassas.